Let's bring in our financial analyst, Brad Wright. So, Brad, my first question for you is a two-parter. The Fed making a pretty big move today, a half a point. It could have done a quarter point. It went all the way to a half point. Why did it do that? And then secondly, did the market react the way it did with this big drop because investors are worried that maybe doing that half-point cut indicates the Fed knows something the rest of us don't?
Right. Well, part one, I'm not sure I can answer concretely, but they did telegraph in the coming months they would do maybe a couple of quarter-point rate cuts, so maybe they pushed that forward. Any rate cuts are eventually going to help the economy as it turns around and moves back up again. But yeah, I do think it backfired. I do think it scared everybody into thinking, wow, maybe the government knows something and they're not telling us, which I don't necessarily think is the case. I also don't necessarily think, rate cuts equate to, oh, everything's okay with the virus. So I'm not quite sure where the strategy came from. But all in all, overall, as we move on, it will help the economy.
So let's talk about how this impacts us as consumers. Credit cards. What about credit cards?
So the Fed lowering rates does tend to coincide with anything that's variable, like a credit card or maybe a 5-year arm and a mortgage or something like that. That could fluctuate along with the Fed rate. If you're thinking about your home mortgage, something long-term, 30-year fixed, something like that, that doesn't necessarily go in tandem with the Fed lowering rates, but the variables are what could be affected.
How about auto loans?
You have to call the dealer and ask him.
and bargain your way down, right?
Yeah, right. Negotiate.
But falling rates aren't going to predict what dealers can charge for the auto loans. Is that correct?
Well, whether it's a mortgage, whether it's an auto loan, I actually did talk to a mortgage broker, a friend of mine today, and they said, you know what, no matter what the rates do, some people are just going to lock in because they're so low right now anyway and just kind of stay put.
So, last question, Brad. Where do we go from here with the market? It's been all over the place in the last 2 weeks. It was up 1,200 yesterday, down almost 800 today. What does tomorrow hold, or is that a fool's errand?
Right. Well, when I was here Friday, it's funny, I mentioned, probably by next Monday or Tuesday, we'll have a better idea of what's going to happen. And I think we do. I think the market is searching for a bottom because what happens when it's searching for a bottom is a lot of volatility. So it's going up, it's going down by large margins. It tried to go down and, break through the low again today. Didn't quite get there, came back up a little bit. But if it's typical, it should sort of, smooth out for a little bit before it makes a decision now on whether it's going to go up or down, which I think long term, because the economy is still doing well, it will head back up.
All right, financial analyst Brad Wright. Brad, thanks for your expertise. Once again, my guess is we'll see you again soon.